The first real estate deal that I ever made closed $110,000. And for the past 12 months, I've been able to close deals that have made me an average of 100K each and every single month. So anytime you start a business to begin with, you want to see if you're a good fit for that business and if the business works during the current market cycle. So with any sort of business, you want to develop a flow of fresh opportunities that keep coming in. And when you're first getting started, you don't have a lot of resources and experiences. You just don't know what you don't know. So I'm going to walk you through what it takes to build wealth using the 5 pillars. I'll jump over here to the iPad real quickly, and I'll just walk you through it. So we call this the pillars of wealth, and there are 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these pillars are made up of time, money, network, knowledge, and value. So time, money, pretty obvious. You need time, you need somebody's time, you need money, you need somebody's money, you need somebody's network to help you solve problems, and then you need the knowledge, the skill sets to run the business, and then you need a value creation vehicle. So what does that mean? A value creation vehicle is, in the context of real estate, is a good deal. A good deal allows you to provide value to the marketplace. You can have every single one of these things. You can have every single one of these things without value and never make any money. You have to have something that provides value to the marketplace. Without that, there's no way to generate anything. No one's going to do a transaction because you haven't created any value. And so in whatever situation you're in, you use what you have access to get the rest. So I'm going to show you how you use the pillars to start your new business and work your way through what we call the 5 phases of building a business, all the way up to $100,000 per month and growing to 7 figures. And when you first start a business, you just don't know that much. You're ignorant about how to run the business. So to begin with, you want to learn the business. And to learn the business, you want to know how, in our case, in real estate, how the business works. So we always start off with prospects, somebody who has a property, and then we go to leads, somebody who says, I'm willing to sell my property. That's a lead. And with that, you do the analysis, you run the numbers, right? Like, well, what do the numbers say? And after you run the numbers, then you make an offer. And we like to use what we call a 3-option letter of intent. I'll explain that later. And then once you negotiate a deal and somebody agrees to your letter of intent, to your offer, you do what we call a PSA, a purchase and sale agreement. This is the contract that actually says the buyer, this is the seller, here are the specific terms. And once you sign it, both parties sign it, you're under contract. That's what we call in the business. And when you have a property under contract, now you have an actual deal. Everything you've done up to this point is just leading you to finding a deal. And then once you have a deal, you have 2 options. You can decide to assign your interest to a third party buyer, or you can decide to buy it. You can just buy it. And to do that, you need to raise money. In either case, right here, you're looking for somebody to come in with some cash. You can bring some of your own cash if you have it, but a lot of cases when you're first getting started, you don't have a lot of liquid capital to just go out and buy, $1 million properties. So you end up raising money from a third party, JV partners, capital partners, lenders, banks, or you assign your interest to a third party buyer who buys your position. It's called an assignment fee. And from there, this is how we make our money, right? This is the whole reason we're doing all this. We're learning how to do this is so we can make money. So now I'm going to walk you through the 5 phases of any kind of startup wholesale business, and you can begin to build on each of these pillars. So there are 5 phases, and they look kind of like this. So you have phase 1, phase 3, where we start to make some money, phase 4, and phase 5, where over here, you're actually making, our goal here is to be making $1 million a year. And over here, you're at 0. So let's talk about how to do this. So this first phase right here is called apprenticeship. This is where you're working for somebody else in order to learn the business. So you could be a bird dog where you're finding other people's deals and you're just kind of sourcing deals for people. You could be an acquisition representative. You can actually work for somebody who is wholesaling, and you can be an employee in their business, and you can be one of their acquisition specialists, or you can be a JV partner. Any combination of that makes sense because you're getting access to deals, and you want to learn how to source deals. You want to learn how to comp deals and run the numbers and analyze a deal to see if a deal is a good deal or not. You want to get comfortable talking to brokers and sellers, and you want to see transactions happen. And when you see transactions happen, you kind of you visualize, oh, this is how a transaction goes from, remember up here, the transaction, how it goes all the way from a prospect all the way to making money. So you want to learn this entire process, and it's hard to do that by theory. It really helps if you actually see a transaction happen. And that's why at all possible, you want to learn with somebody else so that they show you the business and you can earn while you learn. And so you'll be earning maybe a small commission, maybe a small fee, and you'll be getting just a very small piece of the overall pie because the value that you're producing is very small in comparison to everything that's happening. But the value to you is incredible because you get to see the entire transaction transpire and you get to see multiple versions of the transactions. And so in this case, you might want to set up your own LLC, not strictly required. If you're working for somebody else, then probably not necessary. But if you're doing wholesale fees for yourself, then it's probably time to set up your LLC. And then you also want to get in the practice of running your business appropriately. So this is where you're going to go to a place like relayfi.com and you're going to get your business bank account. And this is where when you earn commissions or anything that any expenses that you have is coming out of this business bank account so that you can actually have your expenses coming out first and then your income comes over top of that. It helps with your taxes later on. Now the tech stack here is really very simple. Like you want to keep this whole thing very, very simple. I think the biggest mistake people make in this first phase is they invest in a whole bunch of really expensive tools that you're not there yet. You don't need them yet. And so you want to learn how other people organize their leads. And you want to, if you have leads, you can organize these in a simple Google sheet. So Google is your friend here. Use as many free tools as you can. And you want to learn how to measure success. You've learned the fundamentals of the business. And so when you know when to go from here to here, your measuring stick there is, do you feel like you understand how the business works? And so how you know when you can jump from this stage to the next stage is when you know that you've seen transactions happen and you've brought at least a few viable leads that turn into real deals, and you've seen assignment fees from the inside, and you understand how to do the deal from end to end. Once you know how to do it end to end, you can jump over to this next one, which is called the side hustle. So the side hustle is when you're running your own business. And you should be thinking about this as a 90 to 180 day sprint. You don't have any employees yet, but you've kind of gone out on your own and you have your own viable business. And maybe your spouse involved, maybe you have a co-founder, maybe you have a partner, and you branch out on your own and you're doing your own deals. And this is where you are successful at being able to source your own deals. You can fund your own tools. So you may have some additional tools now. So you may have like dialers, you may be doing some skip tracing. So you're spending a little bit of money on leads. And so you're creating lists and you're marketing to these lists to make offers to buy properties. And at this point, you want to see one or two transactions go completely through your entire process from beginning to end. And you want to be a legit side hustle business. And you want to get to that point as soon as possible. Like this is intentionally a sprint because you want to be in a position to make enough money to be able to go to the next stage. And at this point, if you haven't already, you definitely want to set up your LLC. You can definitely hire a local attorney, or we can drop a link to the attorneys that we use to help you set up your LLC. And you don't need anything too fancy here, just a basic LLC that allows you to earn assignment fees. And so your tech stack now is perhaps Google Sheets. You may upgrade to a very simple CRM, but whatever you do, you want to do it super low cost. You're sourcing your leads from places like Zillow, Crexi, Commercial Deal Finder, PropStream, and then you're using Google again to just keep track of all your docs. So you're using Google Drive here because you do not need to go spend a bunch of money yet because you haven't made that much money yet. Keep it very simple. And so your measure of success right here from this stage to this stage is when you are getting 1 to 3 5-figure deals. You're making $10, $20, $30,000 per assignment fee, and you're starting to make some money that starts to make a difference. And maybe you're making a $50, maybe $75,000 assignment fee, but you want some money coming in, so you're getting deals that are bringing in tens of thousands of dollars every time you do a deal. And once you get 1 to 3 of those, you may be considering a situation to where you can go and do this full time. Okay, this next one I call minimum viable business. You'll hear about in entrepreneurial circles talking about the minimal viable product, like the minimum product to figure out if there's product market fit. Well, we don't really have a product in real estate. We provide a service. And so as a process of that, you want to make sure that you have a minimum viable business that is making you enough money at a very simple level to be able to cover your living expenses. And this is where you're shifting from running these like 9-day experiments to actually running a business with actual structure around it. And this is where you're going to pick a specific asset class. So here you've have a proof of concept. This was your proof of concept right here. It works. I'm making $10, $20, $30,000. Now I want to double down. I want to do that thing from here on. It could be single family. It could be RV parks. It could be commercial, of multifamily. You choose. You're probably choosing a specific region, and you're really going for it. And you have one market, one asset class, one strategy, and you're going all in on that strategy. And this is where you're going to build a fundamental, basic marketing plan. So you have something that you do consistently over and over. And you basically create what we call a perfect repeatable week. Very important concept. With a perfect repeatable week, you know Monday through Friday what you're doing pretty much every hour, and you know the activities that are driving the outcomes that you want. And so you know exactly how much direct mail to send, you know how many cold calls it takes to get certain kinds of leads, you know what kind of agent reach outs you're doing. If you're doing kind of co-wholesaling, you know exactly who you're working with. And so you have this follow-up list instead of a wait list. Like you track every seller lead until they sell or tell you no. So you're no longer hoping and wishing and dreaming that you might have leads. You know where leads are coming from, and you have a system to follow up because we know the fortunes of the follow up. And if you haven't already, this is definitely the time to set up your formal business structure. If you haven't done it by now, this like you have to now. Like this, you're starting to make some real money, and this is where your LLC and your overall entity structure needs to be set. And this is probably time to actually talk to an attorney about this. If you've done it on your own in step 1 and 2, no big deal. On step 3, you want a formal entity structure, and you still don't want to spend a lot of money here because you don't have a lot of assets yet, but you want to be able to know what your plan is for when you do develop your assets. And this is also when you want to set up your basic accounting system. No one talks about that. That's not sexy to talk about your accounting system, but you need a record keeping and accounting system so that when you file taxes, it's super easy and not a big stress. A big mistake I made is I didn't hire a bookkeeper soon enough. So you definitely want to hire a bookkeeper early on. They may be $75 an hour. Like you can probably do cheaper, but realistically, a good bookkeeper will save you so much time by just having them do this 2 or 3 hours a week. It's not like a lot of money here, right? So you're spending as much on software as you are on your bookkeeper. So don't stress it too much. The bookkeeper helps keep you sane when it comes to file taxes because you do not want to get cross with the IRS. Just don't even entertain that concept. Just do it right, and it'll save you a ton of hassle. And this is where you may actually start developing a website. This is when you might actually go to that level. You have a website. So really more for credibility. Or if you're doing a lot of wholesaling, you want a place to host your properties so that when you have something, pictures and a write-up, you can send people to a website. That can be a good time to do that. And again, you're not spending a lot of money. You're not spending $3,000, $5,000 on a website. You want to do this for under $1,000. Do it yourself if you can. If you can't, no problem. You can hire it out super cheaply. You can get somebody off of Fiverr to just set up a basic website. Go and find somebody else's you like. Say, I want that one. Just copy it over, but I'll put my information on there and maybe change the colors a little bit. And so with this, your success criteria going from step 3 to step 4. So this is 3 to go to step 4. Here you're making anywhere between, I don't know, you're doing 4 or 5 deals at a time, right? And to go to the next level, you want to make this jump. You have this real pipeline of consistent seller leads. You're doing 3 to 5 contracts. You have offers that are going out consistently. You have 10, 20 offers going out consistently every single week. And when you're ready to make this jump from this 3 to 5 range over here, this is when you're going to go full time. This is you are a full-time investor, wholesaler extraordinaire. This is full-time. And so when you're going full-time, this is where you're probably hiring VAs to make the cold calls for you. And maybe you're doing AI agents, if that's a thing. You're using all the technology and leverage points as you can in order to scale up. And you're getting at this point, you're doing 5 to 10 contracts. And you're going to have probably 1 to 3 core people in your business. So you're going to have an acquisition manager, probably who manages some VAs to provide more leads. And you probably have a dispo agent to move your transactions. This is a dispo agent. So this is on the sell side. The acquisition manager's on the buy side. And you may have an operator. This could be you or your partner at this point, but the operator, you need to be thinking about succession planning. Like, how are you going to be out of the business so that you are just owning the business, not working in the business. Right now, this is that transition phase where you need to figure out if you're going to hire somebody out now, or you're going to wait to the next stage. And so this is now when you're getting a formal payroll system. You're using QuickBooks or Stessa for bookkeeping. You have a Slack channel for your team communications. You're using ClickUp or Asana or Notion, Monday.com for project management and for team organization. At this point, you're running a legitimate full-time business with 1 to 3 employees. And so you're marketing. So you have daily outbound messages to now you're actually trying to find bird dogs that come into your business. Remember back over here when we had apprenticeships, you are now bringing in people to do the apprenticeship service. You want them to be your bird dogs, and you will go through a ton of people before you actually find somebody who's good. Just the reality of it. But you want somebody to help you with your business, and you're not going to pay them very much because they're hungry and they're willing to learn, and you sign a non-compete with them. Like before they come in, this people, you're going to show them your business, but they have to go someplace else besides where you operate. Make sure that's clear. And at this point, you're making $50K per month, right? Over here, you're probably making about $10K per month. And our goal here is to be making $100K per month, which is a little over 7 figures per year, right? So at this point, you jump from here to here when you're consistently making $50K per month. The business runs every single week without you starting from zero. You have multiple contracts closing with predictable assignment income. Now, here we're in the scale phase. This is where it really gets fun. This is where you're no longer a startup, you're a legitimate business, and you're making $1 million a year. And there's still a lot more to go from here because you have some choices to make. You need to decide if you're going to be a wholesaler forever or if you're going to start buying your own properties. And this is very exciting because you may only think of real estate wholesaling as a means to an end to get to owning property, which is totally fine. So let's talk about that. So when you start making 50 to 100K per month and you're running at 30 to 40% margins, you're making anywhere from 300K to 600K of profit, like to your bottom line every year. So this is on a per year basis, okay? With that kind of money, you can now be a legitimate buyer of properties with the very way that you could become your own buyer. And that's when it's so fun, is when you become your own buyer, you cherry pick the best deals. And this is where you change your life. Making this kind of money is amazing, but it's a lot of work. You got to run the business and it still needs you. When you have this kind of cash, you can start planning your exit. And so everything about this step 5 right here, step 5 is about creating repeatable systems that scale, and you're replacing yourself. So this is when you absolutely must have an operational person, and you have a training system for finding your bird dogs. Make a little more space there. You want a training system for your bird dogs. You want people bringing you leads because you know how to move deals. Other people may be getting okay at finding deals, but they don't know the other side yet. And so you come in and you say, yeah, I'll co-wholesale with you on this one, and you bring it in for me, right? And this is where your people, your students or clients or whatever you want to call them, to come in and start bringing you consistent leads. And so you are at the scale phase when you are making 100K per month and you are out of the day-to-day. You are the owner and not the operator. You've successfully trained this operator to run the business without you having to do much. And now that you have the 5 phases, next actions are that make the most sense for you and your circumstances. You can join our free community to get access to all the commercial real estate toolkit and resources we make available to you. And that will give you a jump start into getting the business going and getting a lot of opportunities. There's people you can meet in the group that you can perhaps partner up with. And after you join our community, what's very interesting to learn is that the real estate market has taken a huge shift. And I've made a video right here breaking down how you can take advantage of it right here.